Good Monday, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for October the 28th. Today we are reading together Psalm 126. The 126th Psalm has been given the title in my Bible, Zion's Restoration. This is beginning another series of three psalms that could follow sometimes very closely and sometimes a little more loosely. This theme of lament and confidence leading to celebration and joy in Zion. This is going to be a lament psalm today. And it's an interesting lament psalm because it is going to speak of restoration that seems to have been that seems to have begun, but then it's going to ask for more restoration to be experienced as well. Lamenting difficulties, lamenting oppression in some ways, lamenting sadness, but recognizing that God certainly has the ability to change that reality. So let's read that together here. I'm going to get Psalm 126 on the screen. We're going to read together here Psalm 126, beginning in verse number 1. Psalm 126, beginning in verse number 1, Zion's restoration, a song of ascents. When Yahweh restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream. Our mouths were filled with laughter then, and our tongues with shouts of joy. Then they said among the nations, Yahweh has done great things for them. Yahweh had done great things for us. We were joyful. Restore our fortunes, Yahweh, like the watercourses of the Negev. Those who sow in tears will reap with shouts of joy. Though one goes along weeping, carrying the bag of seed, he will surely come back with the shouts of joy, carrying his sheaves. Psalm 126. There is some thinking with this psalm that there could very well be a strong association with restoration from Babylon captivity. In fact, in verse number 1, the second line where it talks about when Yahweh restored the fortunes of Zion, there is an alternative translation which reads, when Yahweh returned those of Zion who had been captives. Just a translation decision there had to be made, and the CSB went with the more generic, the fortunes of Zion being restored. But again, this other translation would be valid as well. So it does give us some insight that there is a thought here that this is associated with the return of restoration from captivity. So, in thinking about that, or just more generally thinking, at any point, whenever fortunes have been bad, whenever there's been really more misfortune, and that's been changed and reversed into positive fortune, that whenever that happens, the people who are experiencing that would be like those who dream of greener pastures on the other side, who dream of a better day ahead, that their mouths would be filled with laughter and their tongues would be filled with shouts of joy. And they would even say among the nations, they would even speak among the nations of all the good things that Yahweh had done for them. And that Yahweh does do great things for his people, that he does make his people joyful, that he does make his people glad. So, in some sense, here in the first two verses, first three verses, there is a restoration that has taken place. So, maybe, again, applying it to captivity, this is the fact that Yahweh has brought them from Babylon back into the land of promise, and they are now no longer in captivity, but they are in the place where they ought to be. However, as we think about the historical events of restoration, as we think about Ezra and Nehemiah and the stories that took place there, we recognize that just because they were back in the promised land does not mean that everything was perfect. In fact, we know from reading from our familiarity with Nehemiah that there were still some obstacles and some difficulties that the people of Israel faced, which is why there is an already present restoration that has taken place, but there is still a desire for greater restoration to take place as well. So, yes, we're thankful and we're joyful for what God has done, but there is still the request for Yahweh to restore our fortunes, or even again an alternate translation, return our captives, Yahweh, like water courses in the Negev. The Negev was a wilderness where there was not much water. So for the Negev to have water would be a very incredible sign of restoration and reversal of situation and a reversal of fortune. So restore our fortunes. They've been bad. We have been like a dry wilderness, but make us like a place overflowing with water. Make our fortunes better, Yahweh. So we need more restoration. We need greater fortune given to us, because those who sow in tears will reap with shouts of joy. They have cried previously, but that crying is going to turn into laughter. Those tears are going to turn into smiling. Though one goes along, verse 6, weeping, carrying the bag of seed, he will surely come back with shouts of joy, carrying the sheaves. So he's gone out with seeds to plant, and the seeds that have been planted have grown and sprouted and have produced a crop, have produced something good. You could see this in a couple different ways. You can see this just from an emotional state, that there is crying, that there is sadness and difficulty, but then that turns into smiling and laughter and joy. But you can also see it from a blessings perspective, that they've gone into the land not having anything, but through God's grace and through God's mercy, they have now produced crops, and they have those things that are needed to sustain them. So again, within this psalm, you do see a lament for misfortune, but you also see those tinges of confidence that Yahweh's the one who has the ability to reverse that. To again turn tears into joy, sadness into gladness. They've already experienced a little bit, it seems, but they know there is still greater restoration in the future. And we can sympathize with that, can't we? Or we can, I guess, empathize with that. We feel that because we know, as God's people, those who have experienced the grace and mercy of God, who have been translated into his kingdom, who have been added to his family, we know the joy of restoration. But we also know that there is even greater restoration in eternity. For here now, we still have sadness. We still have difficulties. We still wrestle with temptation and the ramifications of sin. And we know that death awaits us all. But in the next life, when we are in the presence of God, that no longer is going to be an issue for us. Those things are no longer going to trouble us, for then restoration will be totally and completely complete. A little redundant there. Totally and fully complete. How about that? We do look forward to God's restoration, and we thank him for what we have experienced thus far. And that seems to be the mindset of those who would sing this song of ascents, making their journey to Jerusalem, making their journey to the promised land, being thankful to be on this journey, but recognizing there are still greater days ahead. Appreciate you taking some time to read along with me on this Monday. Hope that you have a great rest of your Monday, and we'll be back at it again on Wednesday, reading together from Psalm 127, the blessings of Yahweh. This is a very interesting psalm. It is a song of ascents, but we are told it is of Solomon. Looking forward to reading that with you then. Take care, and God bless.